Hello and welcome to AEF TV in association with Engerati. I'm joined now by Wanda. You're here as part of a large US delegation and the Power Africa initiative. Just in a brief point, because we've got quite a bit to talk about. You just tell us a little bit about that.
We're here with there are 5 US agencies that are here attending the conference. 12 US agencies involved that are collaborating to bring 10,000 megawatts of power to Africa with the private sector in the United States and the US government. And it involves technical assistance, financing, and capacity building. And
when you talk about power investment, one of the things about power investment is it's an expensive thing. Right,
yes.
How is the finance being structured around it? Well, you mentioned private. It's almost like, it sounds like a private-public partnership in America that's going to be releasing funds.
That's right. U.S. government agencies are committing monies, and the private sector has stepped up so far for $15 billion. So the total commitment from the United States to date is $22 billion. Exim Bank is stepping up to the tune of $5 billion as part of the U.S. government commitment.
And so that is a big fund. It's numbers you sometimes can't quite get your head around. And one of the things that people are saying, okay, well, it looks like, and I've had a number of people sat in this chair again from the private sector say, look, we've got the money, we're ready to invest, but there's also an impatience on the ground to get some of these power projects in. What are the projects that are already in, and and why does it take a certain length of time in order to get them in there? Because I know that you were saying that you were on a panel and people were saying, well, why don't you just do it tomorrow? If you've got the money, why don't you just put it in there?
It's a long-term investment that we are making alongside our African partners. The countries that have been designated Power Africa partners want to have a sustainable power sector, and so we're investing for financial viability, long-term financial viability in the utilities development and the operational viability of these companies, so that the need is so enormous. Even though we're providing quite a lot of money, a lot more is needed, and in order to make sure that the private sector is engaged over the long term to provide all the money that's needed and the investment that's needed, certain things have to be put in place, and it has to be done correctly.
And it also comes down to skills transfer as well, because you want this to end up, I know that I was sat here talking to a gentleman from, I think, Manitoba Electric, who are doing the Nigerian sort of transmission.
Yes.
But their mission is to not do it forever. That's not what they want to do. They want Nigeria to be running it.
That's right, and Nigeria wants to run it. And so there's opportunity absolutely for capacity buildings, technical skills training at all levels in the industry, from technicians to the managers of utilities and across the sector. So we would like to make sure that that's in place, so that the country's needs will be met over the long term and it's sustainable. Because
I just want to take that thread a little bit as well, because it's not necessarily in this sector, but there has been a history, especially on the African continent, where aid, let's call it that, has been parachuted in, a bit like what people are saying, why can't you do it quickly and put it in? And there has in recent times been a criticism where actually that may not have been the right thing to do, because we weren't thinking about anything long-term sustainable, things like the situations in Ethiopia, where you don't want countries to be reliant on aid constantly. You need it to be sustainable, you need it to be self-funding at some point.
That's right. One of the agencies that's involved in this is MCC, Millennium Challenge Corporation, and the other USAID. They've been very active in a number of countries, Ghana, Tanzania, and others, helping to develop, all of the requisites that are needed in order to make sure that the industry is sustainable in each country. So, for example, you need tariffs in place and a tariff structure that will attract private investment, because people have other opportunities. They're competing opportunities around the world. And in order to attract capital that may go to another continent, you have to ensure companies that they'll be able to get an adequate return. Well, in order to do that, you obviously need to have the ability to make sure that collections are able to be made from the retail sector, that the technical losses are addressed, commercial losses are addressed. In these countries, the people have the ability to pay. It's clear. You see that from the telecom sector. That the large informal economy in many countries, people have money in their pocket, they will pay for essential services. It's a matter of making sure that they're getting value for the money, that they're getting reliable electricity, and that you've got, say, the technology in place to make sure the billing systems work. I mean, there's a lot that can go into this. The gas.
Someone was mentioning something to me yesterday at the reception. They were like going, well, actually, it's like, I don't know, there's more mobile phones per capita than anywhere else in Africa. And someone was saying, well, you could connect the mobile network up as a billing system for the energy thing. Why not?
Why not, right? You can do prepaid cards. There's smart billing, there's smart grid technology. People can, remotely turn on, measure, turn off if people don't pay the, electricity that's going into a home or a business. And at the end of the day, that kind of infrastructure, it ensures collection, and if you marry it with reliable service provision, then now you've got a sustainable approach to power delivery. The other thing is that some of this, let's get it set up quickly, ignores the fuel source. Yeah. And right now, many places, people are burning diesel fuel. 65 times more pollution comes from diesel than from renewable energy sources. And renewable isn't the only fuel source that we're looking at, but certainly that's a huge tax. If you free up the cost from people having to generate their own electricity and spending extra money on costly, dirty diesel by building it correctly, then it frees up these monies that are being burned and used unproductively for other sources, and that has the potential for.
And that also kind of neat link to the other point that's been coming out. It's just like, a lot of emphasis on renewables, and that's great. I've got nothing against renewables, but they've got one big issue. I mean, maybe not hydro, but they're intermittent. And countries need a base load as well, and that's some of what you're talking about there. We can't be reliant on diesel as a base load. We've got to look at other fuel sources.
That's right. I mean, we certainly, the Obama administration has been very clear that we want to support climate change remediation, right? But there's also an understanding that there are trade-offs involved on a continent where millions of people don't have access to electricity, and the implications of that for healthcare, education, basic, human needs. You've got to reach a lot of people, and many renewable projects won't be of sufficient scale to meet the need. And what we're hearing from, in every segment that I've spoken in, and I've heard from African partners that they need power that's going to generate electricity for the masses, and that's the first priority. The President's initiative does not say that we can never support thermal power. What it says is that in the poorest countries, if a thermal source of power is the prevalent fuel source, that we could finance it. And it recognizes the trade-offs.
Yeah, and there's complexity as well in Africa as well, because it's rural by its DNA, so you also can't suddenly start building transmission lines all the way through the Serengeti and things like that.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, never say never, I hope not though. But, so you also have to look at distributed generation, microgrids and things like that, and that's where everything just needs to be balanced, doesn't it?
That's exactly
renewables
right.
with gas, and you get a balanced generation source.
Right, and clean. I mean, the emphasis is clean. So if you look at Nigeria has huge gas supplies. Like, I think it's the 8th largest gas reserves in the world.
Exactly.
Well, if you're flaring gas now, right? If you can capture that gas, price it correctly, make it economically and commercially attractive for companies to refine and produce it and distribute it. Now what you've got is the ability to make that, and stop burning diesel, and stop running diesel for self-generation, stop flaring gas. That
it just makes sense. It is one of those ironies in Nigeria, isn't it? Where you we need to get energy to this big swathe of people, yet they're set on one of the world's biggest gas reserves. But
but the other thing is that it's clean. It's cleaner. It's a lot cleaner than the alternative.
A lot of things that I've been hearing as well is just like a sort of a hybrid model as well. Where you could have solar or wind working in conjunction with gas. So when the wind's blowing, great, we'll use that. When that will fire up the gas. But the two things are technologically connected in a smart sort of microgrid that.
Combined cycle.
Exactly. You aren't. It's not. It's been one of my frustrations. I'm glad I'm hearing it. Is people are looking at it as an energy issue, not as we need coal, we need nuclear. It's not. You don't need it. You need it all to work together.
That's exactly right.
And in terms of the output, because we're going to have to push on because we are rattling through the time. In terms of the output, what have been some of the outputs of the initiative already that you can share with us?
There have been various, say 2,800 megawatts of power are being developed in several countries. Exim Bank hasn't yet got its program up and running in terms of finding financeable transactions. We're transaction driven. And I'd have to probably defer to some of my colleagues in other agencies to talk more specifically about the projects that they're working on.
Well, we can do that as some sort of follow-up and put it in an article to wrap this interview around. Just as we're coming to the end of our time, it's just a part of being at EnergyNet is to network and have meetings and things like that. And you were talking to me about a particular meeting you have. I don't want to talk about it. I'll let you talk about it because that seems quite exciting.
It's very exciting. We've had conversations with Turk Exim about collaborating, the US Exim Bank and the Turk Exim Bank, to collaborate on co-financing and to formalize an agreement. So that's one conversation that we've been having over the years, but we had another meeting about that here. But really, as part of that, we had a separate conversation yesterday with the Deputy Minister Deputy Minister of Energy and Natural Resources about formalizing.
Professor Murat?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. About a more formal collaboration where, for example, Turkish builders and developers might construct a power project, and there might be suppliers of equipment, turbines, generators coming from the United States. We'd finance our portion, they'd finance their portion, and together we would collaborate to build power plants. I think that that's a potentially very exciting opportunity, and we were able to have that meeting here.
That's a fantastic meeting to have, and it seems like from what you were saying is that is something that both sides are quite keen on. So it could be something that's formalized reasonably quickly. I know these things take time, but reasonably quickly.
There was quite a push from the Turkish side to get something done quickly and have it be as specific as possible. And so we are looking to do this very quickly. The beauty of it is that it brings together the core competencies from both sides. You've got, one of the complaints is that American companies haven't been coming in to build, and some of the companies, for example, Enron used to build power plants in Africa, and they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
Well, our core competency is, the equipment. Turkey's competency, in part because there's so much South-South trade, is they're comfortable in the markets in a way that American companies may not yet be. They have built an enormous number of projects in different parts of Africa, North Africa and South Africa, Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. And it would be one of those partnerships that
kind of makes sense.
Really makes sense,
yeah.
yes.
And they're at the doorstep, well, near enough the doorstep of the African continent as well, yes.
Well, that's their point. That's what they said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's a great note to end it on, and thank you very much for sharing your experience and also some of the issues, particularly around sustainability and making sure that we get this right for the long term rather than just some short-term fix that then creates enormous problems for the next generations and so on. Right. I think that's important.
Right. What I was going to say to you earlier about MCC that I didn't say was that they're working with the African governments. We're not coming in saying this is what you should do. They're saying this is what we think we can bring, but we need you to give us input. We want you to be fully invested in the outcome.
It's a collaborative exercise rather than a finger-pointing one or anything like that. Or
us coming in and imposing solutions that they haven't bought into.
Which won't work in a local context or anything like that. You've got to make it work in a local context, haven't you?
Right. Exactly.
Great. Well, we're going to end it on that note. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you as well for watching. It's another interview for AEF TV in association with Engerati. And we're nearly at the end of our time here. We've got another 2 interviews to go. So I hope you have enjoyed the series.